I'm Aditya Veera. I'm your host for today. You can call me Adi. Uh, a big namaste to you and welcome to Stalwarts of Music, Mr. Anderson. I have a couple of interesting questions as part of our agenda today, and let's just dive right into it.
Yep.
Your good old friend, Pandit Chaurasia ji, often said that never bore the audience, modulate the music so that they understand and connect with you. Your song from the latest album, which is Puppet and the Puppet Master, frames the performer audience dynamic as mutual manipulation. So, how do you reconcile the tug of control with the responsibility to keep listeners engaged and not just entertained, Mr. Anderson?
Well, the first thing to say is that that is a light-hearted song lyric.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to be taken too seriously, and I'm not the only one to make that comparison with being a puppet controlled by others, and also the idea of who is pulling the strings, the
Mm-hmm.
puppet or the puppet master. I'm sure that's not an original idea, but it's an amusing idea, and in my case, when I'm on a stage, partly I am manipulating the audience in terms of emotions, thoughts, ideas, and they, by their reaction and the fact that they have taken the trouble to come and buy a ticket and sit in the audience, that also is in a way controlling me by their presence.
Okay.
But it doesn't make such a big difference, and I don't think in reality it matters, because ultimately I am there doing what I do
Hmm.
for my own pleasure. And if the audience didn't come, I would still do the show anyway,
Right.
even if there were nobody sitting in the audience, because I do it for my own pleasure and satisfaction, because performing on a stage is a challenge of considerable proportions. It's 2 hours of aerobics, physically and mentally. It's a challenge.
Sure.
And so something that I do willingly, and I enjoy meeting the challenge and trying to do it in a good, positive way, perhaps better than I did the night before. Who knows?
Hmm.
At the end of it all, puppets and puppet masters, we're all part of that equation, controlling each other. And some
Right.
some some artists complain about being controlled by managers or agents or promoters, and some people like me don't,
Hmm.
because I have a great relationship with record companies and managers and agents and people. It's a mutual arrangement, So I don't have any bad experiences of being manipulated or controlled by anybody, whether it's an audience or other people in the music business. It's lucky for me, but
Yes.
perhaps it's part of my own personality and design that I don't um, I don't need that kind of control in order to operate. And I think most people understand when they're working with me that I am pretty much a self-contained person. I don't need too much in the way of guidance and
Hmm.
influence, and I can quite happily go my own way. So, but as I say, it's a song. It's just a song. It's a bit of fun,
Yeah.
and don't read too much into it.
Got it. Speaking more about the album, it's got the folk rock textures, instruments like the mandolin, accordion, acoustic guitars. So they evoke Tull's 70s analog warmth. However, there's Dolby Atmos, which has also been used as per latest standards by contrast. And it's a hyper modern tool, as we all know. Did you wrestle with reconciling these opposing aesthetics to make it fit into an Atmos context?
Well, no, back in 1974, I released. Well, actually, we didn't release them. I think maybe one or two might have been released, but we worked, and I remixed albums in what was back then the surround sound medium called quadraphonic. It
Mm-hmm.
was only two front speakers and two speakers behind, so it was a 4-channel surround sound. And I did that with Aqualung and Thick as a Brick. I think we did it with two relatively new albums at the time, which were Minstrel in the Gallery and Too Old to Rock and Roll. I think we recorded those in my mobile studio, which was equipped to record and mix in 4-track surround sound.
Okay.
But it was too early. There was no demand for surround sound back then. People didn't have the equipment to play it, and the quality was not that great of the digitally encoded rear channels in the 1970s, because that digital technology was in its infancy at that point. So I've been involved in surround sound since 1974, so it's nothing new to me. And when it comes to albums in more recent years, then I'm happy to have other people do the remixes and surround sound. Stephen Wilson's done many Jethro Tull albums in surround sound, and
Right.
Bruce Sword, my friend from the Pineapple Thief group, he's done the last 2 albums, and it's great, but I don't have that technology in my home.
Okay.
I just have never felt the need to spend, what would it cost me? Probably at least £100,000 to build an okay Dolby Atmos studio in my home. And I don't think my wife would want me to tear a room apart in order to do that, with all the speakers and the wiring and the overhead speakers. And, so it's just not something I want to do. And just to listen to something once a year. I'm not a music listener, so I don't need music. I don't need surround sound or Dolby Atmos to listen to other people's music either. Mostly when I listen to music, it's only sitting on an airplane to keep my mind off flying, because I'm not a happy flyer and I get a little stressed on an airplane, so I play music to keep me calm.
Okay.
So it is the music usually of Baroque or Renaissance, classical music. It's not rock music.
Right on. Speaking about your stint in Goa, artists often seek out environments that stimulate their creativity in different ways. In your initial experiences with Goa, did you find that it offered a particular kind of inspiration? Perhaps, some people love it as a tourist attraction. Some of them love the culture, some of them love the food. So, what was the affinity for you with Goa?
It was a visit on maybe 3 occasions, I think, with my family,
Okay.
primarily as a holiday break. But it was somewhere that they all liked, because they like the food, they like the culture, they like the warm temperature, and I know from my point of view, I sat and listened to a lot of music when I was in Goa. Some of it was indeed Indian music. Some of it was music from other places. Some of it was the music of of um, of Scandinavia. I listened a lot to some Scandinavian and actually Finnish folk music. So I listened to music, when I was relaxing there, but
Okay.
not, I wouldn't say that it made a huge difference to my songwriting. It was just nice to be able to lie quietly and sometimes listen to a bit of music. But yes, I did indeed listen to some Indian music, and it seemed to fit the mood of where I was. But mostly I don't know what they're singing about, because I don't speak the languages, and I don't necessarily follow all the detail, particularly of more traditional Indian ragas, which are very intense, and perhaps also to the Western ear, they tend to become. Don't take this in a bad way, but they're a little monotonous harmonically, because everything is simply in the same root key. And the music that I wrote for the song "Drink from the Same Well," which was a demo I made to possibly play with Harry Prasad Chaurasia back in 2007, that music was music which I knew he could play on his flute, but behind those melodies and those musical ideas we could shift around the chords and the harmonic nature of the music to make it more interesting from a Western standpoint. But I think maybe he might have found that a little uncomfortable. I know when I worked with Anushka Shankar some years later, I wrote some music for us to play together. And again, I did the same thing, that I had to really study the sitar and the music that you could play on the sitar and the music that you could not play on the sitar because of all the drone notes and so on and so forth. So I tried to write music that was practical for her to play, but we would push the boundaries a little bit in terms of harmonically visiting related keys to the primary key that she was playing in, and she understood it perhaps better because she'd done more collaborative work with other Western artists. So I think she was a little more familiar with the idea of integrating the sitar into something a little more of a Western setting. So that might have been easier for her than perhaps it was for Harry G, if we can call him that. He was a lovely guy, and we played together doing a classical Indian raga. But I don't think he was going to be comfortable doing the piece of music that I wrote for him. At any rate, he chose to do something else, so that was okay. And I found the demo last May, and I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. It's because I played the bamboo flute on being a piece of music written as a duet for the Western concert flute and the Indian bamboo flute, and I thought, wow, I played that pretty well. It'd be a shame not to let people hear it. So I wrote some vocal melodies and some lyrics and added some other instruments, um, and edited it quite a bit to make it only 16 minutes long. And we released that. That was the first song I finished for the new record, in fact.
Oh, wow. Talking a little more about Goa, Mario Miranda is an absolutely fabulous artist, and you also seem to have a flair for paintings and are an artist yourself. So, did you get to check out some of his artwork?
No, I don't think so. You'd have to. I would have to look it up. I'm afraid. No, I'm not familiar with the artist.
All right, I'll be sure to send across some of his work.
Okay, thank you.
You might be interested. Yeah. Speaking more about the album, in the lyrics of Interim Sleep, the room next door and onward train frame death not as an end but as a transition. So, why did you avoid traditional religious or mythological imagery? Was it to make the ineffable feel navigable or to quietly critique institutionalized ideas of the afterlife?
But I'm not critiquing anything. I wrote that piece. Initially, I wrote a poem about 2 years ago. It was an imaginary poem giving comfort to someone who was bereaved, someone who'd lost their partner, member of a family, member of or a partner, a husband, a wife, a lover, um, just to bring comfort
Okay.
and to suggest that perhaps the end is not the end, that death is not the beginning, not the end of something. It is the beginning of the next phase, and so that rather Buddhist belief in samsara, the recycle, the rebirth and living a new life, is kind of embedded to some degree in pretty much all religions. But in Christianity, for example, the belief is that people die and they go to heaven. They don't necessarily go through a new material life by being reborn in the world that we know. That is kind of, is rather different, but in a way is not so different in as much as it still says death is not final, and in death you will be reunited with your family, your friends who may have passed away before you. So, I mean, the idea is quite common to all religions, and I'm certainly not making a critique or saying something is better than something else. My own religious beliefs are not really beliefs. Belief implies certainty, and I don't have certainty. I believe in possibilities and probabilities.
Hmm.
So I would say from my fairly extensive reading on comparative religions that I am inclined to think in terms of probabilities about a spiritual belief and the idea of a Godhead and the idea of there being not finality in death.
Hmm.
But I'm not a Christian. I'm certainly not a Hindu, and I'm certainly not a Muslim, and I'm not Jewish. So, I was born into a tradition, culturally speaking, of Christianity being the religion of the country in which I live. And that may have changed quite a bit in the last 60, 70 years. There's been a huge amount of immigration from other countries, and obviously those people have brought their own religious beliefs with them. Many people coming from in 47, 48, people coming from Bangladesh, from India, people coming in the 1950s from the Caribbean,
Hmm.
people coming from different parts of Eastern Europe more recently. So there are many different cultural influences in our country now than there were when I was born. But nonetheless, I feel Christianity is still the religion that is closest to my background personally. And I am a big supporter of Christianity, but I don't call myself a Christian. You can think of me being more of a pantheist, or to be more precise, perhaps a panentheist.
Hmm.
Subtle difference there, which maybe you should look up rather than have me explain something complicated. So, yes, I'm a person who has spiritual tendencies, but they're not firm set beliefs because I don't feel I have yet earned that certainty in my life to have a belief system that I would say, that's mine. That's what I believe in. But, who knows? I might wake up tomorrow with a renewed sense of spiritual identity and tell you that I am something else. Who knows? I'm perfectly content to wait a little longer for any ultimate enlightenment.
Well, let's find out then.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as I die, we can get on with it. Yeah.
After so many years of making the flute famous, of painstakingly learning it on your own, what does the instrument mean to you today?
Well, it means first of all January of 1968 when I first took it onto a stage and attempted to play it at the Marquee Club in London. So songs that I recorded back then, like My Sunday Feeling and A Song for Jeffrey in early 1968 and Beggar's Farm. These are pieces of my own personal history, which I will be renewing on Monday morning when I sit down with the members of the band to rehearse the set list for the rest of 2025. And we'll be going through some of those very early songs where I played the flute. And I'm pretty confident that what I play in those songs will be exactly the same as not just the same notes, but with the same feeling that they had when I recorded them in 1968. I'm very confident that will be the way it turns out on Monday morning. But there are other things that I played that I know I could never have played back in 1968, not necessarily just because they're technically difficult, but because they have a different feeling, a different emotion, a different way of thinking about music. lying behind that flute playing of more recent times. But I have to play the music that covers all 57 years of Jethro Tull, Andy and Anderson solo albums, for that matter. But it's a very big. I mean, Beethoven only lived to be 56.
Hmm.
I've been playing professionally for 57 years, and so I'm certainly certainly have a similar amount of repertoire that I have to look back on, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the sense of having a personal musical history, which is satisfying to me to connect with, alongside something that I only recorded last July in terms of music from the new album.
Got it. Talking about the album again, it has long tracks and it also has the short ones, right? So, how do you balance between brevity and expansiveness when it comes to putting an album together?
Well, I suppose some songs, they just tell you what they want to be when they grow up. It's like a small boy. You say, well, what do you want? What do you want to be when you grow up? And one says, oh, I'm going to be a train driver. Another one says, oh, I think I want to be an accountant. God help him. Another one thinks, oh, I want to join the army and be a soldier. Songs are like little children. You give them birth. You help create them. But once you have the beginnings of that song, in a way, you have to let the song speak to you and give you some sense of direction as to what to do with it. And as a record producer, I have to listen to what those songs tell me when it comes to the arrangement and the recording of them. The songs, as they develop a personality of their own. And I think of them in that way, like children who are telling me what they want to become when they're mature. And some songs are short ones, some songs are long ones.
Hmm.
Don't ask me why, but when I start working on them, I feel there's more space and more development to give that piece of music. Some songs, deliberately, I think, wow, I can say all of this in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I don't need a long song.
Hmm.
It can be something more contained. But it's listening to the way the song becomes in that first day, really, of working on a new idea. I get, usually quite quickly, I decide how it should develop by listening to the way the song speaks to me. If that's not too esoteric and too fanciful, it is, in a way, the song talks to me.
Very often, artists find it challenging or vulnerable to share personal reflections in terms of their music compared to writing about external observations or characters. So, in the context of the new album, what is it like for someone like you?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that, first of all, again? I didn't catch
I
the
want
beginning.
I wanted to understand as to the idea behind artists finding it challenging or vulnerable to share personal reflections in terms of their music compared to writing about external observations or
Oh, I see.
characters.
Yes, well, most of my life, most of my music has been more objective, writing about people in a landscape,
Hmm.
because I suppose my interest in photography and painting, which began when I was a child, meant that I was interested in not in portraiture and not in landscapes. Portraits are just too too limiting, just one central subject. And a landscape without people in it is maybe a very beautiful painting or photograph, but somehow it doesn't have that human quality. And I like to see people in a landscape. Maybe the people are very small and the landscape is very big, or maybe the people are quite big, but you still see detail in the painting or the photograph around those people. Gives them a context. Tells me something about who they are and why they're there. And so social realism might describe my approach to making most of my music. I'm writing about people in a landscape, and they're real people, and they have a reason to be where they are. They're interesting, even if I don't know quite who they are or everything about them. So a lot of my music has been objective, talking about people in a landscape. But once in a while, I write songs that are more personal, where I'm giving my own emotions a little more um, of a of a central focus to a song, and that I'm revealing my feelings and my viewpoint on a subject. I don't do that very often. I have done it before in the past, but on this album I do it rather more. And I decided when I wrote the first song that I would continue to write the next set of lyrics. I would continue to have a more personal viewpoint, and that became the the essence lyrically of most of the songs on the album. It's expressing a personal viewpoint. I don't do it to try and change other people's mind or to preach to them. I am just offering a point of reference that maybe someone might find interesting. It might help them shape their own view on something, or it might be in opposition to their view about something. But I am creating more of a personal set of lyrics, and the title track didn't have a title when I wrote the lyrics and I recorded the song. I recorded all the vocals. I thought, I don't have a title for this. So my inclination was to go look at the lyrics and see if something in the lyrics became the title. But then I came up with the idea of curious ruminant being applicable to what the song was about. Curious in the sense of my having curiosity about a variety of subjects and topics, and ruminant in the sense of ruminating, of thinking, of contemplating something that I've taken in as information. And we have in English a phrase to chew the cud, rather like an animal ruminant who chews the grass and vegetarian matter, and then regurgitates it, partially digests it, and eats it again. It's chewing the cud. It's taking time to re-examine something. And that's what I do in life. Every day I try and learn some new things that I didn't know yesterday, and I try over the next days or weeks to think about them and give them some context in my own life. And that's just been a habit of mine since I was a child, I suppose. So Curious Ruminant sums up not only the title track of the album, but it sums up what lies behind all the songs. I am curious about different topics. I'm curious about Shakespeare because I didn't do English literature at school. And so late in life, I'm curious about Shakespeare, what made him think of things and how he came up with stories and lines. And so I went to visit a place that he writes about in Macbeth, a place called Birnam Wood. And that is became a track on the album talking about Shakespeare, but using that subject, a subject of betrayal between two people close to each other in the Macbeth story. I turned that into more of a political betrayal, set in, if you like, the democratic cornerstone of democracy, the House of Commons in London. Not the oldest democracy in the world, that actually is in Iceland, but we come a close second, really. And so our oak-lined chamber of the House of Commons, covered in oak wood, reminded me of the Birnam Wood oak trees marching on Macbeth in his stronghold and the castle in Dunsinnan on the hill there. And so I'm curious about that, and I thought this is an idea for a song. And those are examples of the way that I come up with ideas for music. I'm curious about the object, the crucifix in Christianity, and we all know what it symbolizes. But why do people actually want to wear something around their neck that talks of death? Cruel, horrible, cruel, torturous death. Why do people find the crucifix is something comforting? It's a very odd situation. That historically the crucifix is a symbol of, not only a symbol of faith, but a symbol of peace. And yet it's the crude, awful way of killing Jesus the Christ. And so I kind of explore the nature of the crucifix as a source of warding off an evil spirit in the song on the album, which talks perhaps of being followed down a little narrow street late at night, hearing footsteps behind you, and you're not sure whether it's just a mugger trying to steal your watch, or is it some more demonic creature stalking you from behind in some more insidious and frightening way. And so the Christian symbol of the crucifix is warding off that evil spirit in the song, the Stygian hand. But anyway, that's kind of, those are examples of how I come up with songs based on elements of interest to me. And lots of things interest me. Some of them interest me for 5 minutes. Some of them interest me and continue to interest me for most of my life.
Marvelous. I have one last question for today.
Yeah.
Which is from one of your most loyal fans in the country, Sudhir Pai, who's been following your music for more than 40 years now.
Okay.
The question is, down in the distant horizon, what would you like to be remembered as?
Well, as people often say, what would you like your epitaph to be? What do you want on your gravestone? And I suppose it would just be something along the lines of being recognized as someone who tried to make the best of what I was given, in terms of having some creative ability, and so yeah, I would just like to think that people would think that I was someone who tried. I made the attempt. I didn't sit back on my bottom. I actually tried. I made the effort. So, maybe simply, he tried harder would suit me just fine. Next one.
Thank you so much. It's been such an incredible blessing, honor, and a privilege.
Okay, nice to talk to you. Take care. Bye-bye.